Hey everybody, Wolfie here. So this is our third through hiker that we've interviewed, and with that being said, I've got a story to share about this one. Is I was at the planning retreat for the Allegheny Trail, and we were sitting there talking about social media and where we want social media to be. So I brought up Facebook, and lo and behold, right as we were sitting there having this discussion, was this gentleman that his picture popped up and said he was hiking the Allegheny Trail on the Facebook group. And with the picture, he said his pack weighed 51 pounds with 10 days of food and 3 liters of water. And we'll discuss it. I've got a picture to show, so we'll discuss it when we get there. But with that being said, I'd like to introduce Jarrett Ritchie, who I think he started September 26th and ended October 17th. So, Jarrett, welcome aboard, sir. Introduce yourself and say hello to everybody.
Hello, Jarrett Ritchie. Yeah, like you said, Woofy. Started September 26th, and whatever day you said I ended, I don't really remember. They all kind of ran together after a while.
So, I'm going to bring up that first picture because I think it's an apt place to start, right? And so you can answer to your choices. So this is the picture I'm referring to there, Jared. You right at the trailhead. Is that a golf umbrella you're carrying?
It is. It is.
So you're prepared for bad weather right from the get go.
Yeah. There was some chance of rain, so I wanted to make sure that I stayed as
Is,
dry as possible.
is that bear spray on your hip?
It is.
It is. So, so
I
you
mainly have that for black bear. They're usually not. They usually won't bother you too much. I mainly have that for dogs usually. I've had a
yeah.
bad run-in with dogs in the past, so I don't take any chances with strange dogs.
Okay. So yeah, so we're all sitting there and we were all thinking that you got a 51-pound pack, and next thing I know is you've hiked all the way to uh Friends of Cheek Campground. And that's a heck of a day.
Yeah, it was. It was a rough day. It was beautiful though. I really enjoyed. Um, the gravel roads don't bother me too much. The pavement, is a little bit harder on the feet, but I walk a lot on gravel roads where I live, and so it was kind of reminded me of home a lot.
So what made you decide to do the trail and do it this time of year?
Uh, I've wanted to do the trail for several years. I heard about it. I was doing some work for the Forest Service back in 2012, and we did some trail maintenance around the Bear Branch Trailhead. And after I learned about the trail, I started doing some research about it and found out, where exactly it went. And I've been wanting to hike it since then. And I was originally going to hike it in April, but unfortunately, life gets in the way sometimes of your plans, and then I've rescheduled it for the end of September, and yeah, so I was able to start it the 26th, and I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
You caught us all by surprise when we were sitting there at the retreat, and you were the subject of conversation for the next couple of days because especially with that 51 pack and that 10 days worth of food. Next thing you know, the 27 miles, right? So
Yeah, I guess you could kind of say a little bit of an experience. That was my first long distance hike. Um, I had originally planned to send a couple of resupply packages, but after talking with my wife, we decided that she was going to drive down to Durban and meet me at the halfway point, and then I'll just carry enough food to make it halfway, and then carry the food from to finish the second half.
so in the Facebook group, resupply packages are always talked about, right? About where to get food. Do you really think they're necessary for the Allegheny Trail in today's environment?
Uh, I mean, depending on. I mean, there's enough places to stop where you could probably get some basic stuff, but if you have set kind of food that you're going to want to eat. Like I pretty much lived off a mountain house for the most part. Those weren't available anywhere. So it depends. If you're going to be on a really slim, you know limited amount of food, depending on what you might like. I'm not really too sure. It just
So
depends on personal
if
preference, I
if you're
guess.
doing like a through hiker diet of ramen and chicken, packages of chicken and stuff like that, you could probably do it, right?
Yeah, you could probably get away with that. There are plenty, several stops along the way. Every what was probably every 3 to 5 days, depending on how far you walk. You're pretty much going to come through some town that's going to have something.
And so what did you think about that first 27 miles? You said it was rough. I mean, you did have some beautiful country on that road walk, and then you hit the Cheat Canyon.
Yeah, it was a long day. I started a little bit later than I had planned to. By the time my wife dropped me off, I'd hoped to start right at sunrise, but I ended up getting there about an hour late. So I didn't get to the Friends of Cheat until like maybe 20 minutes before the sun went down. So I just set my tent up right away and just went straight to bed. I didn't even eat dinner that night. So I'd only had a couple snacks throughout the day, and I think just the excitement and the adrenaline kind of kept me going for those first couple of days. The second day was kind of rough. I left Friends of Cheat pretty much right as the sun was coming up, and then I made it all the way to Rieger Family Shelter. But it rained on me all day. I was completely soaked. It stopped raining like maybe a half an hour before I got to Rieger Shelter, and it was dark by the time I got there. I had to put my headlamp on for the last few miles, and I was completely soaked.
Now,
It was
so
cold.
at least that was a road walk, right? So that's right as you're coming into Marlington, not Marlington, Rollsburg.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The last bit was pavement.
So Peddler's Glory was it rained on you, but it was still pretty much a dry stream, right? Even though with the rain, or was it coming down pretty good by
Is that
then?
the section? Is that the section where you come across that closed down bridge and then turn and go up the hill?
Now, Peddler's Glory is where you have to do the creek walk.
I think that was. I think I did the high water route
Oh,
from
you did the
from
high water
there.
route. See, you got
Yeah,
to
I
go back and
was.
enjoy that. I'm telling you.
I planned to go back and finish that section. I was worried because it had rained all day, and I was worried about because I wasn't too sure what I was getting into down in there, so I didn't want to get down in there and then have to turn around. So I just
You
I
took
stayed on
you took
the
high
high
water route.
water
Yeah,
route.
that's probably a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
choice.
Yeah,
And
because I knew I
so
had to make it all the way to Rieger that night, so I knew if I had to turn around in that section, I was going to add way too much time.
so where was your next stop? I mean, on day three? How far did you go on day three? You still crushing the
I went
miles because
nine
that
miles.
9 miles.
No, no, everything was soaked. So what I ended up doing that next morning is I went down to Rollsburg, went down to the park, and I ended up staying in the park for like 8 or 9 hours. And I just pulled a bunch of the chairs out of one of the pavilions and was just moving the chairs around just to keep the sun on all my stuff and just laid it all out over the park and was drying it out. So I only did. I just went up to the Lance community building that third night and just stayed up there. So it was only like a 9 mile day,
Yeah,
but it was
but
actually pretty cool. While I was sitting in Rollsburg, the military was driving by all day long, and then at one point they pulled into the park right next to me. And then they threw a smoke grenade into the field, and then they landed an Apache helicopter like maybe 100 yards away from me. It was pretty cool.
yeah. So you're up around the Army National Guard base there at Kingwood that entire day. You hiked around it. So when you came down in there, it's just right out Rollsburg's back door.
Right. Yeah, there were some local people sitting there, and I asked them, I was like, "Is this normal for them just to land helicopters?" They didn't even care. He's like, "Yeah, they do that all the time." I thought it was one of the coolest things.
So so we got Sweet Dog is he says he can't imagine you doing 27 miles in one day. And he says you are a BA.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times.
Yeah, well, we've said that about you too. But so, you know, you're coming in and you're coming into, I think the very first thing I got is I was when I was trolling your Facebook videos, and I'll bring it back up again. So that's the Olson Fire Tower, right?
Yes.
And so what was your impressions of it, and what was your thoughts? Because I saw the video of you being up on top of it, and you had looked. I don't wouldn't say you had a death grip on that window, but you did have a good grip
I
on
had
it.
a death grip on the window. I'm a little scared of heights, which is kind of strange because I'm also a roofer. So I mean, it's an interesting career choice. Um, but
Yeah, but that's nothing compared
it
to
was
that
pretty
tower,
windy.
right?
Yeah, that's it's about what 100 feet off the ground or so when you get up to the top of it. And it was pretty windy. It was pretty windy up there that day, and so when you're up there, you know the structure's moving a little bit side to side with the wind, with how heavy the wind was blowing. So it was making me a little extra nervous. So I was holding on to the to the frame pretty good. Um, I was thinking about staying in there that night, but the floor is kind of it's kind of small up there, and I was worried. I wouldn't really be able to stretch out very well. And then um,
Yeah,
the door
you are
doesn't
a
really
tall guy.
close.
You are
Yeah,
a tall
yeah, I'm
guy.
six foot
I slept
four.
up there, but yeah, I had room. But yeah, you're a lot taller than me. So
Yeah, the door doesn't really close all the way, and I also roll around a lot in my sleep, so I could just picture myself rolling out that door and falling down the steps, and that would not be very
yeah,
good,
I
especially
had
being that high.
everything I own was between me and the door. So I made sure.
Yeah, just in case, just so you didn't roll out of it.
Yeah, just in case I didn't roll out of it. So we'll go a little bit further here. So then you come down to Thomas and Davis, right? Was that your first exposure to those two towns?
No, no, I've been there a bunch of times. Like that picture of Blackwater Falls is actually pretty shocking. I've never seen Blackwater Falls that
That
that low
low?
before.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
one reason
yeah,
I wanted to put it in here is because I've never seen it like that either, and it's just shows how big of a drought we've had in the area.
yeah, yeah. Usually it's raging. You usually don't see any of the rock right there. It's usually that whole section's usually got water coming over it. So I wish I had enough time to walk down the other boardwalk over the one that gets up right next to it, but of course, it would have taken a lot of extra time to walk over there.
Yeah, that's a long haul too. So so there we get to the highest point, right? And this is right past John's shelter. This is probably what about another 70 miles into the trail, maybe 60 miles.
Yeah,
Did you
probably
go
about
to,
that.
before we get to this point? Did you stop by LRC B&B on your way through, or did you just kind of go on by?
Yeah, no, I stayed the night there. I think it was you that actually told me that they offered a hiker discount. So I had gave her a call once I got some cell phone service and scheduled a room with her, and that was a nice, needed, comfortable bed to sleep in for the night for sure. I definitely enjoyed that little break.
So then you hit like the true backcountry part of the trail, right? And so
Yeah,
what were
yeah,
you?
that was definitely that was definitely my favorite section right after leaving there. You got a couple miles until you get to where that washout shelter is, and then that whole section back through there is gorgeous.
And then so then you come to what I can't remember the right Route 33 or 32 that goes between Elkins and in that area. So and then you're still in the backcountry for quite a ways, except for like a little bit of road walk around Lady. So you're still feeling good at this point.
Um, Somewhat. I mean, I started having some issues on day one and two with my feet, and then I was having some chafing issues with after day one. I think it just because I pushed myself so hard, and then day two with how much rain there was, it kind of exacerbated it a little bit. But then that's kind of the reason why it took such a short day on day number three. It was just to give my feet a rest and try to heal up a little bit.
Yeah. So what were you thinking when you were getting towards John's camp? Right.
Yeah, I was having a hard time that day. That was day number nine. I stayed at a campsite around the 136 mile marker, and then that day I ended up walking 23 and a half miles from there to John's camp. And of course, I came through Glady, and then the west. I think is it the West Fork Rail Trail or the North Fork Rail Trail? I think it's West Fork. But I had right after you get on the rail trail and you walk in there several miles, and then the trail heads off to the right in a little bit, and then I ran out of water right before I started up the hill, and I only had just like a third of a liter left, and so I was trying to nurse it until I got to the Willdell shelter because I knew that there was a spring there. But when I got up there, the spring was not running. There was no water up there at all. Um, so I was in a pretty bad situation. So I only had just a couple swigs of water left in my water bottle. And then the next water source was still another, I think, 4 to 5 miles from there. And the whole time, so I'm just taking little sips as I go. About every mile, I'll take just a tiny little sip. But that day was the hottest day of the trip for me. It was in the low 80s, and I was sweating like crazy. And of course, again, I was out of water. And then so when I started getting close to that water source, I was praying. I was looking up at the sky, just begging that there would be water there when I got there. And so I got to the water source and went down the hill, and got to the end of where the blue tags were, and there was no water. But I felt the ground and it was damp, so I thought surely if I go a little bit further down the hill, I'm going to find some water maybe. And thankfully, I had to push my way through a bunch of brush and trees and stuff. But I got down there probably maybe a quarter mile down the hill off the trail, and there was finally enough water down there that I could scoop out of it, and I was able to get some water. And I was almost in tears. I was so thankful that there was some water there, because then again it's another 5 miles or so from there to John's camp. So, and I was worried. I didn't think I would be able to make it. So uh, then it
So,
just
so the water source you were talking about is that's the one. There's a cairn. It's like really thick trees as you're going through, and there's like a cairn off to the side to mark where you turn off to go to the water, but you have to go deep into the woods to get the water.
yeah, that's it. And it's like right in the middle between the Weldell shelter and John's camp shelter. So
Yeah, and that's a hard water source to get to. Period. I mean, it's not a really well blazed trail to get to that water source.
no, I was using the Far Out app to try to help me get down to where it was, because yeah, the blazes weren't that great. And then again, once you got to where it said the water source was, there wasn't anything there. But thankfully, when I felt the ground was still damp, I thought surely that there's got to be some a little bit further down.
I'm glad you got water there because I've always seen that run in water all year round. This was the first year I think I've known it to be dry.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. So I didn't want to run into that situation again. So I actually started carrying 5 liters of water with me after that, just
That's
to
it.
just
That's
to make
11
sure.
pounds. That's 11 pounds of water. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd rather have a little bit of extra weight than run out of water again.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah, and because it was we just recently hiked between Cass and Durban, and it was pretty much dry except for that one creek there before you get to Greenbanks. But so you zeroed in Durban, right? You actually took a zero in Durban.
Yeah, that's where I met my wife at. So yeah. Oh well, then after I got water, thankfully I was able to fill up all three of my bottles, and then I actually took. So I filled up all three of my 1 liter bottles, and then I took my water collection bag, a Canuck bag, and I've filled it up about halfway just to have a little bit of extra. And then I got to John's camp, and that day was really rough. The morale was really low with the heat and losing water and everything. I got to John's camp, and at that point when I got there, if I could have snapped my fingers, I probably would have snapped my fingers and went home. And then I actually uh, so I set up camp, because I knew I couldn't make it home, and in the middle of the woods, and so I set up my tent, and um, I still had a little bit before it got dark, and I decided I'd brought a book with me to start reading, and so I started reading it. It's actually it's a personal finance book. It's The Richest Man in Babylon, and there was one section in it that really as soon as I started reading it, it really changed my whole mindset for the entire trip. And it in one section it starts talking about the willpower to continue, basically. And the sentence is, willpower is but the unflinching purpose to carry a task you set for yourself to fulfillment. If I set myself a task, be it ever so trifling, I shall see it through. How else shall I have confidence in myself to do important things? When I set a task for myself, I complete it. After I read those words, I realized at that point that I can't give up. I this is something that I've wanted to do for years, and again, it's a task that I set for myself, and so I have to complete it. I can't give up. So after I'd read that, it really reminded me of why I was there and why I was doing this, and it changed my whole mindset for the rest of the trip. And then, of course, the next morning I got to wake up and walk into Durban, and I got to see my wife. She was bringing me some fresh food, and I was going to get a nice hot shower and relax for a couple of days. So it was
So
it was a good
eat
it was a good timing.
you check out the restaurants there and stuff. And
Yeah, yeah. I ended up having dinner at the um, I think it's rustic roots maybe,
what's the roots? Yeah,
and then
I
had
always get it confused with Rambling Roots, which is a hostel down in North Carolina on the AT. I always get those two confused.
Yeah, I ate a lot of food in Durban. As soon as I got to Durban, the train was just coming into town, so the station two was pretty busy. So I just kind of waited off into the corner until they got done dealing with those guys, and then I got food at station two, got checked into my room, got a shower. Um, then I started walking. I wanted to go up to the gas station a couple miles up the way, and thankfully somebody was nice enough. I started walking. I was hitchhiking. They picked me up, took me to the store, waited for me while I was in the store, and then took me back to the hotel. And because my wife wasn't coming until the next day, so I didn't get to see her until then. But and then while the next morning, my wife got there, and then of course it was the Station Two restaurant was closed for that morning, so I didn't get to eat breakfast there that morning. Um, but then I ended up having a bunch of food, like I said, at Rustic Roots, and then my wife got there in the late morning, early afternoon, and brought me my resupply. And she ended up sleeping for a little bit and left later on that evening.
And Rustic Roots is a really good addition to Durban. When I did my hike last year, it didn't exist. So I'm glad
Yeah, it
it's
was
there.
nice.
Yeah, definitely a great place to eat and great atmosphere. And the gentleman who owns it, he's kind of puts me in the mind about you. He's a tradesman himself, and all that decorations and stuff he did himself in there, all the bars and everything. So, and he's that's not his only job. His primary job is like a contractor and tradesman, and then he also runs the restaurant too.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually
So
talking. I think that's who I was talking with. I'd asked them a couple questions because they had the old brick wall on the back, and it was all. It looked really nice, and I asked him how he made that, how he made it look like that, and I figured that he put epoxy on it, and that's what he did, and it looks yeah, the atmosphere in there is great. It's a beautiful place.
yeah, so then you got you've had some pretty big climbs already. I mean, coming out of Glady and up the mountain there through that section was a big climb. But then you got some big climbs coming out of Durban too, right? As you're heading towards Green Banks.
Um, yeah, yeah. Actually, one of my biggest climbing days was the day where I ran out of water. I had
Yeah,
looks like I think I had 4 days that were over 4,000 feet.
yeah, because that would be the day you hit your highest point right there, or the next day, I think.
Yeah, is that
Yeah,
is that by Gaudineer Knob?
yeah, that's close to Godnear Knob. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I know it
yeah,
doesn't go all the way up to the knob, but I thought that was in that area.
yeah. The lowest points there as you enter Cheat Canyon, and then this is your highest one.
Yeah, I couldn't find I probably just missed it. I wasn't really. I was kind of walking really fast that day. I knew that the lowest point was up there near the on day one, but I missed the sign for it.
So, what did you think when you got this view of the telescope there?
It's a great view. It's nice to overlook Green Bank like that. I mean, I've been inside of the the observatory there and looked at, rode my bike through all the whole campus and looked at all the satellites in the past. So, I mean, everywhere I'd been, I've been through most of these areas before in the past.
It's just a
But
different
hiking
view.
through yeah, it's a lot different view. Being up and actually looking down on it instead of underneath looking up on it, it's that thing is so huge. I mean,
Yeah,
it doesn't
and
seem real.
yeah, the picture doesn't do it justice either. I mean, when you're up there on top of it, it's a lot bigger than what it makes it in the picture.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. It is absolutely massive. It's like I said, it doesn't even seem real that it can be that huge.
Yeah. So so where did you see this track at?
That was right by the Canaan Mountain Shelter.
Oh,
It's,
okay,
it
so
was
that was
either right
earlier.
before or right after. Yeah, it was right in Davis.
Yeah, so right there is a mountain bike track with a bear track over top of it. Yeah, so
Yeah, that was the
uh,
only that was the only footprint. That was the only footprint I seen of a bear. Um, plenty of droppings. I can definitely confirm that bears do crap in the woods because there was plenty of it to prove it, and it always seems to be right in the middle of the trail too. It's
yeah,
never off to the side.
yeah. So our president last week got bluff charged by a black bear, him and his dog. So yeah, they are definitely out, and he was hiking just a section of the Allegheny Trail doing a day hiking and ran into a black bear.
Yeah, actually,
There's
I ran into him. I seen him this past weekend, and he was telling me about it.
oh yeah, cool. So I love this picture. This is a great picture. I just love the way the lens flare catches off the fire. So that your tent in the back. What kind of tent are you rocking there?
That's a Durston X Dome. I think, yeah, X Dome 2.
XM2, and is that a Helinox chair you're carrying?
Um, I I think so. I'm not exactly sure the manufacturer of
So
it.
you carried a chair with you the entire way too. Here,
No, I gave that to my wife in Durban because I realized that this was the only place I used it at, and it wasn't worth the extra weight anymore. So I
so
got rid of it in Durban.
what else did you get rid of it?
Um, well, I got rid of my second jacket in Durban. I had this cotton jacket. The only reason I took it was because of the hood, and I realized that I didn't use it any at all. So I got rid of this one. I had an extra pair of gloves I gave her, and extra pair of socks, which I wish I would have kept. um, and then there was a couple, the chair, and there was a couple other things, but I can't remember
Did
what else.
your
What
umbrella? Do
else?
you still were you still keeping
No,
your
I kept
umbrella?
that. I kept that until I got to the JB campground down right right near Marlinton, and I left it there with a couple other things because I knew I was going to be coming up to some big climbs, and so I got rid of even more weight when I was there.
So let's go. Let's move on here. So where did you run into this little guy? I think I know,
That
but
was at the CCC shelter. That first one that you come to. This I think it's just Seneca shelter, maybe.
yeah, it's
It's
in
the
the
one it's all open.
yeah the Seneca shelter. Yeah. So he was just
'Cause,
sitting
yeah,
there.
yeah, he was just sitting there on the fireplace. So I stopped there to have lunch, and I just happened to notice him, so I took a little picture of him.
Mm. That's definitely an interesting shelter there. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful view there too. You had a great picture of the view, but I don't think I got it. But no, but then so you're cruising. You're about the 200-mile mark, I think, somewhere around that area. But you look a lot happier there though than you did at the beginning of the hike.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where the 200 miles is. Um, I think that's right by the Seneca Spring Shelter, if I'm not mistaken.
It's
Either
close,
right
yeah.
before or right after. Because I stayed at the Seneca Spring Shelter that night. which that was actually my favorite shelter. I love the bunk beds in it. Um, and it
You had a
got
fi-
really cold that night.
you did
Oh,
a
go
fire
ahead.
in that shelter too, didn't you?
I did. Somebody had stocked that thing full of firewood, and I burned all of it. I kind of felt bad about not leaving any for anybody, but it got really, really cold that night. It was down in the low 30s, high 20s that night. Um, but I ended up sleeping on one of the bunk beds, and I just threw my pad up there, and I didn't even bother setting my tent up that night. Just slept out in the open. It was a beautiful night, though. I had my best night's sleep there out of the entire trip.
Yeah, so this is right before you get down into the Beaver Creek area, and so you climb down into Beaver Creek, but you see this sign first, and that's was made for our 50th anniversary. I'm sure somebody's already told you that.
Yeah,
Um,
Nicole told me.
yeah. So you climb down Beaver Creek, and then you're going into Watoga State Park, right? You have any special memories for that area?
Um, Not really. There's cell phone service right there by the signs. So other than that, I was able to call my wife and actually talk to her because I hadn't talked to her for a few days. So I was able to actually give her a call there. But because that's right before Green Bank too, isn't it?
No, this is way past.
Is that on the same hill?
No, that's past Greenbank. Yeah. I know it.
Okay,
You
okay.
you have so
It's
many
hard to keep
climbs.
track of everything.
Yeah, you have so many climbs that, especially after the fact, they all run together, right? And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
always have to go back and look at far out to see where was this, when did I do it, and so on. But let's go back to the slides here. So you ran into this guy, right? And I didn't even know he was hiking myself, but he's a fellow through hiker too. You caught up with.
Yeah, this is Doug. We actually the first time I met him was he stayed at the LRC one night before I did, and then I caught up to him about 18 miles or so away from the LRC. I passed him that next day, and then he caught up to me in Durban. So well, on my second night, so I we ended up hanging out that second night in Durban, and went to the bar, had a few drinks together, had a good bunch of good conversation. And then honestly, that was I never thought I'd see him again after that. And then, but because I took an extra 0 day that I wasn't planning to, he ended up catching up to me and passing me. And the funny thing is I stayed at the trailhead right as you're coming into Watoga, and he walked right past my tent and didn't even see it. And he went to the complete opposite side after you get through Watoga, and he stayed at the exit side. And then we didn't see each other again until a couple days later. We ran back into each other at Graham Shelter, and then we stayed together for the rest of the trip.
So you had company then. That's always a spirit pick up on
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, yeah, he helped me a lot. He helped me realize that I thought that I had some lightweight gear, and he made me realize that it wasn't lightweight. Like my sleeping bag, I thought that I had a lightweight sleeping bag, and he threw me his, and it's like a fifth of the weight of mine. And so he gave me a lot of really good information. And then after we left Graham Shelter, I was planning to go from Graham Shelter all the way to Moncove Lake, which is like, it was like 29 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was going to be a rough day, especially with the way my feet were feeling. But he ended up having a place, the Howard's Creek Inn, in White Sulphur Springs, and he extended an invitation for me to stay with him. So I took him up on that offer, and we
About
stayed. I stayed
half
with
your
him.
day, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was great. It was great. And after once we made it there, I realized that there would have been no way that I could have made it all the way to Moncove Lake. My feet were in too bad a shape, and just to do that in 2 days was hard enough. So
I've got a
I was real
guest. You want to
thankful
come
for him.
in? Come here.
Maybe with something. I'm really hungry.
This is my granddaughter.
Hello.
Everybody on YouTube knows her as Wookie.
You say Wookie?
Wookie, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, Wookie. Yeah, when she was little, she had this weird laugh, and it sounded like a baby Wookie, so it stuck. Right? Yeah. All right. Let me finish. All right. Love you. I don't think she's going anywhere. But anyway, so so what did you think of Hanging Rock?
It was my favorite part of the entire trip. It definitely, in my opinion, has the best view. Me and Doug ended up staying there for about an hour or so, and we had lunch there and just sat up on the rocks and just enjoyed the view. It was a really great day.
Yeah, so the Hanging Rock is why I always recommend if you're going to through hike the Allegheny Trail, start in the north and hike south because the views just keep getting better and better and better, and this is the peak of the views.
Yeah, this is a great way to finish it out because you're only 10 miles or so roughly from the end of the trail at this point.
There's another great view further down south, maybe 3 miles off a little blue trail that's worth it, and but it still
Is that the
doesn't.
Nelson? Is that Nelson Rocks?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't go there that day. I actually went there this past weekend because I drove down to meet with the president and do that short hike that they did out of Hanging Rock this past weekend. So I got to see it, and it was definitely it definitely should have taken the time on the hike to go down there and see that view as well because it's definitely it's its own spectacular view.
So shortly after Hanging Rock, you hit this sign, right? And you can tell you are one happy person
Yeah,
right there.
yeah, I was a lot happier there because I knew that we was getting close to being done, and I knew that there was no way that I wasn't going to finish the trail now. At this point, if I would have fallen and broken my leg, I would have dragged myself the rest of the way just to finish it.
So this is you at the end, right? And
Yep.
you must have been happy at this point, and then you had this picture taken here. So so where did you guys? So the trail, Allegheny Trail ends. So now you're at the AT. So you got to get off. What did you guys hike to get off?
We turned left and just went the shortest distance down to
On the Virginia side, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then my dad was on his way down. He left around like 5 o'clock in the morning or so to leave home. It's about a 4.5 hour drive for my dad to come down and pick us up. And Doug was originally going to keep going straight, and he was going to walk all the way down to Pearsburg where his truck was, but he ended up walking down the hill with me, and then my dad and I gave him a ride to his vehicle.
As they say, the trail provides, right?
Yeah.
So,
It was great meeting him as well. That was definitely one of the highlights. I think I'll have a lifelong friend there for sure.
yeah, that's definitely that's definitely true. You always, and whoever you meet on the trail becomes lifelong friends. It seems. So is it honest to say that you fell in love with the Allegheny Trail?
I would say that would be a underrepresentation of the way I feel
Underrepresentation.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So share. Go ahead, share.
Well, it this was definitely, like I said, this was my first long distance hike. Um, it it really made me kind of reflect on myself a lot. I think that this definitely changed kind of the way that I look at myself and the way that I look at life. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really thankful for the original founders that took the time our lives to make something like this even happen for us and for future generations. So I'm thankful that they did it, and I plan to give a portion of my life to help it continue as well.
Yeah,
I'm going to be there regularly for maintenance to help with the trail in the future.
I can honestly
So
say the Allegheny Trail changed my life too, and that's why I do what I'm doing too.
yeah, I look
Yes,
forward to working with the members and the board, working moving forward and doing anything that I can to help.
yeah, you were actually thinking about becoming a section coordinator. I heard.
Yeah, I did. I put my application in right after I met with um, Justin, the president, this past weekend. I put my application in to be the Section 2 coordinator. So, of
Yeah,
course, they still have to
hopefully,
accept me. That's not guaranteed yet, but it is
yeah,
a
yeah.
plan.
We're a pretty good bunch of people, but so hopefully, so hopefully there's a lot of good things in store for the trail. Yeah, baby, I love you. Anyway, so with that being said, is there any other comments that you want to say before we end it for the day?
Um, if anybody's thinking of hiking the trail, it's the trail needs a little bit of work still. There are some sections that are a little rough. There's some sections that need some blazing, but all in all, I think that it was a great trail, and I really enjoyed it. And it seems that there definitely seems to be a good group of people that if you have questions that they do seem to be pretty responsive and reach out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I bet you were kind of surprised that we were cheering you on that quick from Facebook and keeping track of you, and we made
Yeah,
sure that
you
you weren't out there alone. At least that's what we tried to do.
yeah, you and Nicole were very responsive, and I wasn't even considering staying at the LRC, but when you told me about it, um, and that they had um, rooms for hikers, and that's when I reached out. I would have never reached out if you hadn't told me about it. I would have walked right past that place. Because I wasn't originally planning to stay there. I was planning to stay at the washout shelter just a couple miles from there. But I'm glad that I stayed there, and I will actually I'll stay there again in the future for sure.
So Sweet Dog wants to know what's your next long distance hike going to be.
Um, I was thinking about Doug actually turned me on to the long trail in Vermont. I've been looking into that one a little bit. I think I might do that one. But my next plan is this coming summer. I plan to kayak the Ohio River from Pittsburgh to the Mississippi. So that's kind of my next adventure, my next big adventure that I'm planning. And then I
Now,
would like to do I've wanted to do the Appalachian Trail since I was a teenager. So I was actually planning to do that in 2027. And I think I might have spoke with you about that. But I've kind of changed my plans on that a little bit. I think I'm going to hike that southbound when I do that. I
uh,
think that I would enjoy the less traffic. I'm more of a solitude
you
person.
have less traffic. It depends on what time of year you're starting the AT. If you start on the south side of it, I'm starting January 1st, or hardly anybody on the trail then.
Yeah, that's true. I was originally planning to start in January, but I'm worried that if I do start in January, with my luck and weather, it'll end up being a really bad winter, and I'll end up having to get off the trail or something. So I think that I would much rather start it in the north and start when the weather is going to be a little bit nicer, and then just head
If
south.
I'm not out hiking when you do your Ohio River trail, you hit me up and I'll join you around maybe New Martinsville or St. Mary's or something like that, and I'll head to Parkersburg with you.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll keep you in mind then for sure. I'm not
Uh,
exactly sure when I'm going to do it. I plan to do it sometime next summer. Of course, that will also depend on life and
yeah.
finances.
That's a fairly new trail. That's a fairly new water trail too. I mean, it's not very well documented from what I've
Is
read.
it actually is that actually considered
Yeah, it is. It is.
okay, okay. I didn't know that. It's just something that I've wanted to do for several years myself. I didn't know that
It,
it was
it's
actually
it's it's actually documented out there, but not many people have done it, and there's not a lot of information that I found. But
okay.
it is
I
an
know that they
actual
do
official
something
water trail.
small. Okay, I know they do something small from Pittsburgh to like Steubenville, maybe. But that's just in the northern side. I don't even think you go through the first lock when you do that, or it might just be to that first lock. But yeah, I want to do the whole thing.
Yeah, that'll be a good adventure. So, with that being said, I'm going to let everybody loose and just hang on a minute, and I'll close out, and then you and I can say our last goodbyes. But with that being said, so I'd like to thank Jared for joining me this afternoon. He definitely had a hike that I was vicariously following on Facebook, and I enjoyed having you today, Jared. With that being said, please go out, like, and subscribe at the Allegheny Trail channel. And like I always say, TTFN, top for now.